everyone, this is Sarah from SRSDesigns. Today I'm going to show you how to make this Loomigurumi Kawaii styled mushroom. He is stuffed and he's squishy and he also stands up all by himself, so he's perfect for displaying. The project takes a total of 480 bands. You'll need 313 for the top, and the bottom part is 157. You're also going to need something to make your eyes out of. I'm using 6mm safety eyes I've gotten off of Amazon. You can also use beads or black bands. You'll need a band for your mouth, a hook, a stitch marker, some stuffing. We're only stuffing the bottom part of the mushroom, so it's about 2 cotton balls worth of stuffing, so not very much. And you're going to need some scissors if you're going to clip the smile, if you're going to do it similar to the way that I do it. So let's get started. I am going to use some of these tie-dye bands for the top part of my mushroom. I think it gives a little bit of an interesting look since it doesn't have any additional decorations on it. You can add some circle decorations. I've seen some mushrooms like with a red top with like a little circle, and I'll talk about how you can easily do that as we move along in the video. So we're going to start with our first row, which is to make our magic ring. So we're going to take a band and we're going to wrap it around on our hook. We have 3 loops here. Then we're going to pull through 6 bands. So take our first band, put it on our hook. We're going to slide this triple cap band up onto our hook and put the end of the band back on. Now I'm going to pinch these so I know I've gotten all 3 of them, and I'm going to make a slip knot, and that's pulling one end of the band, the end that's closest to the hook, through the other part of the band. Now I'm going to hold this band on my hook. I'm going to put the tip of the hook right back through the center of those 3 bands. And I'm going to repeat that process by pulling one band through and putting it back on my hook. Now we have 2 bands on our hook. The first band we want to make the slip knot with, just like we did on the first one. But now we need to connect these 2 together so that our whole project stays connected. We're going to loop bands together. So we're going to pull it through the second. So now the first. So now the band that we have on our hook is the second one we pulled through the circle. So we're going to continue to do that. We're going to put our hook through the middle of that, and you want to make sure you get all 3 bands. Middle of the magic ring. We're going to pull one band through, back on our hook. We're going to slip knot it and then attach it. And we're just going to repeat this process until we have 6 bands. Usually when I'm doing this, I make my 2 slip knots at the same time. So in one motion, I pull the band closest to the hook through the 2 others. And that will give me those 2 slip knots. And now we're done with our first row. And if you want to count it to make sure that you've done it right, and also if you're having trouble figuring out where our next row is going to start, this on our hook is our stitch number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So this pink and blue one is where our hook is going to go under. And we're going to start our second row, which is taking us from 6 stitches to 12 stitches. So that means we need to do an increase, and we're going to put 2 crochets in each of our current 6 stitches. And I'm going to put our stitch marker on the first one to keep track. So instead of moving over to the next one, we are going to continue and put our hook in the same spot. So that's stitch number 2. The next stitch over will have 2 stitches in it, stitch 3 and 4. So here's 3, and then 4. Our next one will have 5 and 6. 5 and 6. The next one will have 7 and 8. The next has 9 and 10. And then the last stitch will have 11 and 12. And now we're up to a total of 12 stitches. And the next place that we can put our hook is underneath where our stitch marker was. So that's where we're going to start our third row. In our third row, we're going to be going from 12 stitches up to 18. So let's pull our first band through. This is stitch number 1. And then in our second stitch, we're going to put 2 crochets, and that will increase. And we're going to repeat this process of 1 stitch, 2 stitch all the way around the circle for 18. So single, double. The next is a single. And then we do a double. When I say double, I mean 2 stitches, not a double crochet. Single, 1 stitch. Next one is 2 stitches. 1, 2. So we do a single stitch, 2, 1, 2. I'm going to tell you at the beginning of every single row how many stitches we're doing. So if you want to count out the bands, pause it, count out the bands, and then restart it. Sometimes that's helpful so you don't lose track. So then we're starting again with the little pattern of a single and then a double. So that's 1 and 2. And then a single. And then a double. 1 and 2. Back to the beginning, right under the stitch marker. Row number 4, we're going to do 18 stitches all the way around, so that's 1 in each stitch. 1, moving our stitch marker so that we know where the row started. 2, 3, 4. Sorry, mushroom, I knocked you over. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and our last stitch here is 18. And now the next place that we can put our hook is underneath where our stitch marker was. Now we're going on to row number 5, and for this row we will be doing 2 single crochets and then a double crochet. So we'll be going from 18 to 24. So here's our first single, and that's where our stitch marker is going to go. Then we're going to do another single, and then in the third stitch we're going to put 2. So here's 1 and then 2. And we're going to repeat that process. 1 stitch, the second 1 stitch, and then 2 stitches. 1, 2. I like to think of my rows in terms of patterns because they usually have like a repeating pattern, because sometimes I get confused when I'm counting, like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I'm just counting the numbers, then sometimes I forget my pattern. So I like to count my patterns. So single, single, and then the increase, which is in the next 1 and 2. Starting our pattern again. 1 stitch, slippery jellies, the second of our single stitches, and then in the next, the next one is where we're putting the doubles, right there, the 2 stitches. So 1 and 2. Gosh, mighty, what's happening to me today? Slippery. Okay, so single, that's the first single, second single, and then 2. 1, 2. And we're going to do this our last pattern. 1 stitch, 2 stitch, and then the 2 doubles together there, the 2 stitches together. And that puts us up to 24. Hook under where our stitch marker was, marking our first row. And now you can see we're getting a mushroom top shape. We're going to increase one more time up to 30. So that means we're going to do 3 single stitches and then an increase. So here's our first single, that's 1. Moving the stitch marker, and then another, we're going to do 2 more of 1 stitch. So that's the second, and then the third, and then we're doing an increase. So each of our little sets of patterns uses 5 bands. So that's our first single, 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 double. So here we go, starting our pattern again. 1, moving over to the next, 2, moving over to the next, 3, and then in the next one we're putting 2 stitches. 1, and then instead of moving over, same hole, 2. Repeating the pattern, starting again. 1, 2, 3, and then the 2 stitches in the next. 1 and 2. Starting again. 1, 2, 3, and then the next one will have the 2 stitches. 1 and 2. Starting it again. 1 stitch, 2 stitches, 3, and then the 2 stitches. So the next one has 2 stitches. 1, and whoops, I almost didn't do it. 2. I almost moved over. So the next one, 1 stitch, 2 stitches, put over 3 stitches, and then in our last stitch right here we're going to put 2 bands through. 1 and 2, and that finishes up the row. Hook underneath stitch marker. Now we're going to do rows 7, 8, and 9. So we're going to do 3 rows of 30, just all the way around. So we're going to do 3 rows of 30. I'm going to pause it here. You're doing 1 stitch in each of these, 1 stitch, and then I'll do 3 rows of 30 and I'll meet you back. Welcome back. Now I've completed those 3 additional rows of 30 all the way around. And I mentioned before, if you wanted to do a solid color and put like dots on it, you can either make your magic ring 1 row and tie it off, 2 rows or 3 rows of circles and tie it off at the end and then attach them to various parts on your mushroom. All you need to do is lay it flat on here, take a band, hook it up through and loop one of the edges. And I'd probably do about 4, like at 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And then attach it on here, and then you can get that kind of a look of a mushroom. I was just using the tie-dye bands because I thought that would give it something interesting without doing, making it more complicated. So now at the part of the project, we're going to start decreasing. And if you look at my mushroom, it actually looks like this. Kind of crazy looking. But this part under here is actually, we're going to push it down and it pops down beautifully just like that to be the mushroom cap. So we're going to start decreasing our project now. So we're going to go down to 24 bands from our 30. So how we're going to do that is we are going to do 3 single stitches. So this is our first single. Moving that cap band, moving the stitch marker so we can keep track of where we started. So we're going to do a second stitch here, and then we're doing 3 stitches. And now in our 4th stitch over, we're going to put our hook in. But since we're decreasing, we want to take the current stitch and the next one and make them 1 stitch instead of 2. So I'm going to hold this stitch on my hook, and I'm going to grab the next one over. And then I'm going to pull a band through those 2 stitches and continue just the way I was with making the slip knots. So that's our pattern, 1, 2, 3, decrease. So here's our first 1, 2, 3, and then the decrease. So we're grabbing the next 2 available stitches and we're making them 1. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to do the decrease. We're grabbing the next 2 stitches. We're starting the pattern over. 1, move to the next. Had one stuck on my pinky. 2, 3, and then that decrease. So we're grabbing the next 2 stitches. One, 2, 3, and then the decrease. So we're grabbing those next 2. We're starting again. 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to grab our last 2 stitches on the row for the decrease. And that's how we're going to make it smaller. And then our hook, the next place it can go is underneath where our stitch marker was. So we're going to do another stitch. We're going to do a row around of 24 now, because we went from 30 to 24. So that's stitch number 1. So moving my stitch marker. 2, just single crochets all the way around. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, whoops, that one's going to be 22. Now, if something like this happens to you and a bunch of your stitches come off, it's usually not the end of the world because they're slip knots. So you can just keep grabbing them and pulling them through. Like I said, that was going to be 22, yeah. That's usually when I lose count, is when I lose a stitch by accident. And I'm like, oh no, what number was I counting from? Okay. So now we're back to our beginning. 24 stitches, the next place that we can go under our stitch marker, so you know we're right on track. All right, next row, we are going to decrease down to 21. We're going to do 6 single crochets and then a decrease. So here's our first, that's 1. Our next row, our next stitch, sorry, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we do that decrease. So that's grabbing the 2 stitches. Now we're going to start over with our pattern 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we're going to do a decrease. 1, 2. We're going to keep continuing with that, the 6 stitches in the decrease. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then in these last 2 stitches here, we're going to do the decrease. So we're grabbing those 2, and we're going to decrease it. We're going to put our hook under our stitch marker. Now we're going to do row number 13, and we're going down from 21 to 18 stitches. And we're about halfway done with the amount of rows we need to do, but they start to get less stitches, so it will go a little bit faster. So for this row, we're going to do 5 single crochets and then the decrease. So here's our first single. Here's 1, moving the stitch marker so we know where we started. 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we're doing a decrease, so we're going to grab the next 2. 1, 2. And we're going to pull a band through all of that. And we're going to repeat it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then we're going to do the decrease. So we're grabbing the next 2. 1, 2. Okay, keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then the last 2 stitches decrease. And we're almost done with this collar. Back under our stitch marker. Row number 14. We're going to decrease again. We're going from 18 to 15. So we'll be doing 4 stitches and then the decrease. So here's our first. That's the 1. 2, 3, 4. 4 stitches and then a decrease. 1, 2, taking those 2 stitches and pulling a band through. And we're going to repeat it. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to do the decrease, which is the 2 stitches together. We're going to keep going. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then our last 2, we're going to do a decrease. And that puts us right back to the beginning of the row. Back under the stitch marker. We have 1 more row to do in the mushroom cap color. Because we need to get down to 12, because this part, the top of the stem, is 12. So we're going to do 3 single crochets and then a decrease, and that will put us at 12. So here's our first. That's 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to do the, I keep knocking you over, little mushroom. Then we're going to do our decrease, so we're grabbing the next 2 stitches, pulling 1 band through, making those 2 stitches 1, and repeating. 1, 2, 3, and then grabbing 2 stitches for the decrease. 1, 2. And then we're going to do it one more time. 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to grab the last 2 stitches for the decrease. There we go. Back at the beginning, underneath both of those bands. So now we're done with our cap color, and we can move on to our stem color. And I'm going to use this super bright orange that I got from Michaels. Our next row is row number 16, and we are starting right here. So let's pull 1 band through, changing our stitch marker, and we're doing 12. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, this is 6, 7, 8, 9, this is 10, 11, and then 12. And we are back at the beginning underneath that first orange. We need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more rows of 12. So I am going to pause the video, and then I'll meet you back after you have made 6 more rows of 12 exactly like this. Okay, everybody, welcome back. So you should have done those 6 additional rows in your stem color. And now we're on row 23, and we actually need to increase this bit here to flare out a little bit for the bottom so it can stand up. So how we're going to do that is we're going to do 1 single crochet, moving our stitch marker, and then in the next one we're going to do an increase. So we're going to put 2 stitches in the next one. 1, and whoops, I moved over. Stay in the same spot. 2. Oops, I need to adjust my mushroom. Okay, I'm actually going to squish him down because he's making it hard to do. He's in the way. All right, so then our next pattern, we're continuing with the same pattern. So in our next, we're going to do the 1 stitch, and then with the 2 stitches. So next we're going to put 2, 1, and 2, 1 stitch, and then we're moving to the next, which will have 2, 1, 2, and moving to the next, which will have the 1 stitch, and then 2 in the next, moving over to the next stitch, we'll do the 1, and then the 2 in the next, 1, same spot for the second, 2, and our last pattern, 1 single, and then the 2 stitches. So that's the first and then the second. Under the stitch marker. That was row 23. Now we're going to do row 24, which is going to be 18 stitches all around. So it's just 1, one row. So just go ahead and do all around. It's very quiet here today at my house. Today is our last day of school for my kids. And then we will start our summer vacation. Still working on ideas of fun stuff to do during the summer. We do lots of our library system in the city we live in has lots of free plays and puppet shows and all kinds of stuff over the summer. So we'll be doing a lot of that, and then the kids will be doing a couple weeks of camp. My daughter is a Girl Scout, and there's a great Girl Scout camp in our city. And she likes to go there every year. And I've said this before, she's 9, and she's doing her first sleepaway camp this year also. Trying to hold the part of the mushroom down because it keeps popping up behind me. So that will be 18 stitches. You're going all the way around. And then we're back at the beginning. And now we're going to put on our face. So what I like to do when I'm putting on our face is to take my hook out of action. So I will put my stitch marker through all 3 of those loops, and that way I can just stick my hook back up in it. And you can see from my sample where you want to put your face. Just gonna make my mushroom cap so you can see how far it'll hang down. So what I did was you just push it in like this. It sort of pops in, and then kind of stretch it out, and that will give you the shape that you're looking for in a mushroom. So I'm going to use these little safety eyes that I've gotten off of Amazon. I'm still on my first pack. I think there were 50 little eyes in the container, the package, and it was only just a few dollars. So you just find where you would like the eye, and then you push this little plastic back piece on it, and that will keep it stuck in the bands. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I have trouble pushing these in. I need to make a little contraption for attaching safety eyes. So there are my eyes, and if you don't have any safety eyes, what you can do is take 2 black bands, put them on your hook, wrap them around one time, grab everything, grab all, wrap it around again, slip it through one band, and then with this part on your hook, you want to go up. Oops, sorry. You take it off your hook. You put your hook through the first spot where you'd like your eye. You grab the band, the end. You pull it down through your project and then up through another hole so you're catching some bands. And then when you pull it back through, you can do a slip knot and it will be secure, and there's your eye. You can also put 1 black band through a pony bead or something and do it the same exact way. Now I'm going to attach my mouth, so I'm going to take a black band and I'm going to cut it with scissors. And I'm going to try to find Mr. Rolly Mushroom a spot to put his mouth that he doesn't look too sad. My other mushroom is looking pretty sad. Let's see. That looks kind of crooked. I think it will be here and there. I think that will give him a happy smile. So once I put it through the 2, once I have it positioned where I want, I'm going to just make a simple little knot at the end. stretch it out and make a knot. And that will keep it secure on the inside. I like to put my knot toward the end. That way I have some room to play with the smile. Now I can, you know, kind of, you can even attach it up over here on the bottom of the safety eye like that. That way it will pull it up tight. Because I want my smile to be upwards. I'm sorry, downwards mostly. So he looks happy. All right, now we need to stuff it. And we are only stuffing the stem. We are not stuffing this top part. So what I said at the beginning, we need about 2 cotton balls worth of stuffing. So you could use cotton balls, or you can use a polyfiber fill or any other stuffing that you have. I was using stuffing. See, that was too much. From a pillow for a long time. I had this old pillow I wasn't using, and I just cut it apart and I use that. And so this is kind of how I want it stuffed. But since we have more rows to do, I'm just going to push it down really far, and we can adjust it once we seal the bottom up. So now we're doing our last row. We're doing our next row. We've got 3 more rows. And I'm going to put my hook back through where my stitch marker was, that it was saving my spot. And so that's, now I have it on my hook, but we need to do the flat bottom. So we need to change the direction of our stitches. And to do that, we are just going to do our next row, which is a row of 18 all the way around in this front loop only. So here's the 2 loops, but we just want the front one. So let's start. That's number 1. I'm gonna put the stitch marker here. And we're going to go all the way around just in the front loop. So that's 2, 3, front loops only, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, almost there. Then 18. I usually have to go slower when I'm doing front loops only because it seems kind of loose and I don't want to accidentally lose a stitch. So here we are back under where we started. Our next row, we're going to decrease again. We're going to be doing 3 single crochets, and we're doing it the regular way through both loops. 3 single crochets around and then a decrease. So here's our first single one. 2, 3, and then we're going to do the decrease. So we're grabbing 2 of the next 2 stitches and pulling a band through. And we're going to continue that pattern. 1, 2, 3, and then decrease. Starting over, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to do the decrease. 1, 2, 3, and this puts us back at the beginning of our row. I'm going to put our hook under the stitch marker there. The next row that we're going to do is 3 single stitches and then a decrease, and we're going to do that around and then end with a couple of singles. So here is our first single crochet, because we need to get this row down to 12 and it was at 18. So there's our first single. We're going to do our second single crochet and then our third crochet, and then we're going to do a decrease. So we're going to grab those next 2 stitches and pull a band through. We're going to repeat this pattern. So we have our 1 single, 2, 3, and then we're going to do a decrease. This orange is really bright. Pattern again, 1, 2, oops, the second one popped down on me, 3, and then our decrease, which is the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and then 1. We're going to end with 3 single crochets after that. Oops, this one is twisted. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're on our last row. We need to close up the hole in the bottom so that our mushroom stuffing doesn't come out. So here we're putting our hook underneath that first stitch from the last row. So we have that. So for this row, we're just going to do decreases all around. So we have this one on our hook, and we're going to grab the second one, and we're going to decrease it. And then we're just going to keep doing that. Keep grabbing 2 at a time and decreasing. And you should be able to do it 6 times. Decrease, decrease. Oop. That band went flying. The next 2. Take our stitch marker out because we don't need it anymore, and there were 2 more stitches that I needed to grab, and that will put us at 6 decreases. Okay, so here we are back at the beginning, and what I'd like to do when I do a with this, I can just put my hook through the bottom and grab a stitch from the other side. And I'm going to take 1 band and I'm going to pull it through all of it and do a slip knot. And then you can stick your hook up inside and hide that tail. You can see that there. Whoop. Let's get the tail hidden. And then you are all done with your mushroom. So here are my little mushroom guys. And you can, like I said before, you're going to want to stretch out the top of your mushroom to get that cap. And then your bottom one, you might want to just stretch out, and he will stand up. So there's proof it does stand up. Like this one, it's curved out a tiny bit. So I'm just gonna stretch him in, and he stands up too. So that's the finished product. I hope you like this video. It would be great if you would subscribe to my channel and click like if you like this video. Subscribing to my channel means you'll get the emails about when all of my new projects are coming out. I'd love to see your versions of your mushrooms on Instagram. You can tag me at SRSDesigns. Have a great day and keep looming.